Izuku Midoriya was your average run-of-the-mill kid. He was adventurous, he was energetic, peppy, all the 9 yards. He was the kind of kid that you'd see running out on in his yard, playing with anything he could get his hands on, climbing trees, going like like going through like neighborhoods, on a bike. He was just like an adventurous little kid. And his best friend Katsuki Bakugo was the same as him. They'd go everywhere together. They'd climb trees, go and play in the forest, even go to the park and create little adventures and create their own little obstacle courses for them to race each other in. They were the best of friends up until Bakugo got his quirk. And Izuku didn't. Though Bakugo was not outwardly hateful towards Izuku, he was just kind of like his ego was inflated, but he didn't view Izuku as a pebble in his way. He just kind of not liked to tease Izuku a little bit here and then. But he would always tell Izuku that if he ever goes too far, and he knew it, he'd go, "Hey Izuku, I'm not serious. I'm just messing with you. You know that I don't care if you haven't gotten your quirk yet. You're my best friend. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just thought it'd be funny to tease you a little bit. I'm sorry." And Izuku would always forgive him and tell him that it's okay, that he just needs to learn to kind of take a joke sometimes, you know. And Bakugo would kind of feel bad because he knows that he can take his jokes too far and be a little bit mean, but he never really means to be. But nevertheless, Izuku and Inko, on his, I'll say, 5th birthday, go to the quirk doctor to see if he has his quirk. And that exact morning, Izuku is as excited as always. He's jumping up and down and off the walls, just going absolutely crazy with excitement. And that morning, he basically he rushes his mom out of bed and tells her, "Come on, mom, come on, come on, come on, come on." And Inko laughs and tells him, "Sweetheart, no need to rush. It's early in the morning, after all. Our appointment isn't until way later." But Izuku is just so excited. And they get there, and Izuku is waving at the nurses, and the nurses are just awestruck at the cute little boy just jumping in the waiting room, so excited. That some of the nurses even make passing comments to each other. "Aw, isn't he just precious? He's gonna be a little heartbreaker one of these days. With that little attitude of his, he's so cute and precious." Granted, no one takes this seriously. They understand that that they're just kind of admiring the fact that the little boy is really adorable. He's really energetic and all that. No one be offended or freak the frick out. But nevertheless, one of the main nurses opens the door and says, "Okay, is there an Izuku Midoriya here?" And Deku is just jumping up and down. He goes, Me, I'm Izuku." And the nurse smiles and says, "Well, come on, little man. Let's go to the back." They basically they take his they check his heart his blood pressure. They weigh him. They take X-rays, and while Izuku is holding his mom's hand, walking to the room in question, the nurse turns around and gives him a big smile and says, "Well, come on, champ. This will be your room right here." And when they enter the room, Inko helps Izuku sit on the patient table as she sits in the chair right next to him, and the nurse tells them, "Okay, Izuku, so you've come to see what your quirk is?" And Izuku's like, "Yeah, I want to see what it is." And the nurse gives him a big smile and says, "Well, the doctor should be in pretty soon, young man. Let's just hope that everything goes well for you." And the nurse reaches into one of her scrub's pockets and pulls out a little lollipop and hands it to Izuku. "In the meantime, here's a little treat to tide you over till the doctor can get in here." And a little while later, after waiting, the doctor comes in and he says, "Hello, Mrs. Midoriya," and who I can only presume is Izuku. And Izuku smiles like real big, and Inko says, "Yes, we're the Midoriyas. So Doc, what's the news? Does Izuku have a quirk, or?" And the doctor says, "Well, we're gonna see right now." Basically, but first, I'd like to ask exactly what's the history with about y'all's history. Do you mind telling me what yours and your husband's quirks are?" And Inko says, "Yeah. I have the ability to kind of just draw small objects towards me, and my husband has the ability to breathe fire." He says, "They don't seem like well, one way or the other. Your son's seems to have a lot of potential. Though I'm gonna have to look through his X-rays and such to see what's going on here. But under the circumstances, if not a mixture of one of his parents' quirks, he may get one of your quirks, just like a very enhanced version of it. He might get super telekinesis or an incredible ability to breathe fire that's even stronger than his father's." Hiniko kind of ponders this for a minute and thinks, "Well, that sounds like something that my son would love to have." But the doctor sits down and he says, "Well, let me see what we got here." And he starts tapping away at the computer, looking through all the data they basically picked up off of Izuku. They check his blood work, his X-rays, and they look through it, and he says, "Well, unfortunately, ma'am, the X-rays show that Izuku's quirkless, but there's something weird with his blood work. Usually, we don't always base it off of the X-ray because studies have been found that it can be misleading to whether you have a quirk or not, but there's something abnormal in his blood. So I can't say for certain, but it could be an error with our system. So it's safe to say that, despite everything that his blood work says about irregularities, I'm gonna say that he's gonna have to be labeled as quirkless to kind of save face for the moment. But because of the blood work, I will have to say that there is still hope that Izuku will have a quirk. So if nothing else, I'll say to keep hope alive, not to give into despair or to give up on your hopes. Because it could still happen. It's just, for now, unfortunately, we have nothing to prove that he does. So, Inko looks distressed and kind of saddened, and when she looks over to Izuku looks absolutely destroyed, absolutely crushed by the news. But she thanks the doctor, picks up her son, and walks him home. All the way home, Izuku looks just utterly destroyed, utterly defeated, and unfortunately, she can't do anything to fix that. Though she does get an idea as to something she could do to at least cheer Izuku up. She tells him, Izuku, I have an idea that might prove to be very nice. How about we invite Bakugo and Mitsuki to a camping trip up in the mountains. I know how much you love to camp and to play in those little parks. So, what do you think? Izuku looks up at his mom, and his smile comes back, and he says, "Yeah, that sounds nice, Mama. I'd really enjoy that." And Inko smiles real big, and she hugs her son real close and says to him, Izuku, even if you don't have your quirk, I know that you can do something great. I don't know what it is right now, but something tells me that you will be something great. You'll just have to find that thing. Find that source of inspiration in you. You may not be able to become a hero, but I know one day you will be someone's hero. You will be something. Even better than a hero, even. I just know it, Izuku. You are a special young man with a big, beautiful heart, with such a kind soul that loves to help others and to spread joy. Even if you can't be a hero, Izuku, know that I believe you can be something better than a hero. I don't know what it is right now, but I'm sure one day you will understand what I mean. And you will find that thing. Whether you become a hero or not, or even something better than a hero. You will one day find it, and it will be the greatest thing you have ever learned or discover. So don't give up hope, my little hero. I know one day you will find your way, and you'll become something better than what anyone else has ever achieved. Izuku's frown turns into a very big smile. One that could radiate a room. One that could make even the most weary of souls find hope. His smile could make anyone feel as light as a feather. And he hugs his mom back and he says, even if I... do you think that even if I don't have a quirk and I still pursued being a hero, do you think I'd be able to do it, Mama? Nico smiled. She'd tell him, I may worry for you though, Izuku, but I will say this. You, with enough hard work and determination, can become anything you want. Even if I'll be scared and worried, yes, I believe you can become a hero still. No matter what anyone says, you will be a splendid hero. Izuku, his smile grew so wide. He desperately wanted to hear those words. He desperately wanted to be encouraged and told that he can be a hero, or something even better than that. But mostly he wanted to be someone's hero and to be acknowledged that even if he didn't have one, or ended up never getting one, that he could be what he wanted to be, which is a hero. So a week later, Izuku, Mitsuki, Bakugo, and Inko, they pack their bags and they go on this little field trip. And the entire way, Katsuki is comforting Izuku and telling him, "Come on, Izuku, smile. Even if you ain't got a quirk, that don't mean nothing. You're still pretty tough. And hey, if worse comes to worse, I can always have your back. And you can create incredible inventions for me to become a great hero. And you'll be my number 2. Izuku smiled real big, and he said, "Really, Katsuki? Or Kachan?" "Yep, I believe so, Izuku. So don't you worry. We'll be the greatest heroes in the world." Izuku threw his fist in the air and he said, "We will be heroes! Yeah!" And Inko and Mitsuki are just laughing in the front seat, like just listening to their 2 babies just become so energetic and happy. And as they basically park the car on the mountain, and they find that the campsite is just like a very small one that has been preserved, obviously, but they set a small little camp up and they basically create some tents, which technically took a little bit of time, but they all had their own individual little tents, and it was and they found it to be rather fun to all for them to put up individual tents. They even got a couple laughs out of it in the meantime. But I'm gonna say that while Izuku and Inko were walking on one of the little trails, Izuku was walking along, and his mom told him, "Be careful, Izuku. There's no telling exactly what'll happen if you don't watch your step. I wouldn't want you to get hurt now." And Izuku said, "Yes, Mom, I'll be careful." And Inko, after walking for a while, she got a little tired and said, "I'm gonna head back to camp. Make sure that you follow this trail right back to the camp, okay? I really don't want you getting lost now." Izuku nodded his head and said, "Yes, Mama, I'll be safe." And he goes along by himself. And so as he's walking down this trail, that he's looking around, he's seeing all types of flora and fauna. He's seeing beautiful flowers cascading around the landscape. He's seeing butterflies, ladybugs, a couple of rhinoceros beetles, just all over the place. And he just finds them to be so pretty. Heck, in the distance, he sees a deer drinking from a pond, and it's as he's going that he sees a path off to the side that looks a little bit beaten up. It's not as well refined as the one he's on now, and he walks off that path to see where the other one leads. And as he's walking along, he's getting deeper and deeper into the forest, and he's thinking, "Whoa, this place looks really cool." And then he finds another fork in the road, and he looks off to the right and the left, and on the right path it looks so bright But on the left path, it looks a little bit darker, but like with a lot more pretty flowers and like some really big trees. So he takes the left path because he wants to go look at the pretty flowers. But as he's going along, he kind of like looks around and he goes, I wonder what would happen if I tried to climb one of these trees. Like, because Izuku, like, as time went on, he kind of learned that he's really good at climbing trees. So he wanted to test himself by climbing up one of these really big ones. And as he's climbing up the tree, like, he gets to the top and he looks around. He's like, whoa, this is really, really cool. And when he comes down, there are a bunch of paths around the trees that he notices. And he's like, wait a minute. Which path was I on again? And he gets down and he begins to look around to see which one he was on. And he picks one. He says, I think it was this one. And he starts walking along deeper into the forest, being careful to try and like hopefully stay on the correct path. But unfortunately, it wasn't the correct path. He stepped on the wrong one and began to walk deeper into the forest, further and further. But in a opposite direction than the one that he was going before. Or instead of him going in a straight line to make sure that he didn't have to remember exact directions, he stayed straight. But in this sense, when he came back down from the tree, he was on a path that was aiming more towards the left. So as he's walking deeper and deeper, it gets a bit scarier and creepier. And he thinks to himself, oh, I shouldn't have come on this path now, should I have? And as he's going along, he gets even more scared and thinks, maybe I should go back. But when he goes back, he obviously goes in that straight line, and it doesn't lead back to where he came from. So he keeps pushing further and further and further into the forest until he is completely 100% lost. By this point, from the time that he had stepped off of the clean and refined path up to this moment, maybe about 2 hours have passed. And obviously, I'm gonna jump to Inko and Mitsuki and Bakugo. They basically get worried and they kind of go back down the path that Izuku is walking originally. And Inko remembers that she told her son to be careful to stay on the refined path. And they go looking for him all over the place and they can't find him. Inko becomes very worried and starts to feel sick as she realizes that her baby is no longer on the path, that he is gone completely. She becomes so manic and frantic that she begins running down the refined path, hoping that maybe he's coming back by now and that she'll eventually run into him. Meanwhile, Izuku is just going deeper and deeper into the forest unknowingly. He's hungry, he's scared, he's thirsty. Until the trees open up and he's in this giant valley of mountains. And in the vast open area, there are giant rocks laying here, there, and everywhere. And Izuku is like scared. He's like, what? This is definitely not where I came from, but maybe I can see where the camp is from here. He goes down and like slides into the valley from like a high slope. And as he's walking around the valley, he looks around and he sees a bunch of deer, some pigs, birds all over the place. And he thinks to himself, maybe there's a spring I can hopefully drink from. And he finds himself a very nice, clean, crystal clean spring. As he bends down to kind of like scoop some water into his hands to hopefully drink, a giant shadow begins to loom around him. When he looks to the side, I'm going to say a giant, definitely a giant monitor lizard loomed not very far away from him. It kind of bolted towards him rather quickly, and he began to run away, scared, afraid of what was going to happen if this monitor lizard caught up to him. And he screamed his lungs out. He's like, "Help me! Someone, please! If you're out there, help me!" And as the monitor lizard is kind of gaining on him and getting ever closer, Izuku begins to cry his eyes out and scream, "Please! Someone help me!" And as the monitor lizard is just about to sink its claws and teeth into him, he hears the flapping of wings as a giant gale of wind rushes past him, and the wind was so strong that it kind of threw him to the side a bit. And as he's getting up, he rubs his head and he looks around and he sees it. Izuku was frightened for his life. He'd never seen such a great beast. Its scales were red, its teeth sharp, its talons razors, and it stood so big that even just its size alone, if he was to barely lay its hand upon Izuku would be crushed alive. He could not stand a chance against this great behemoth of a creature. The dragon looked down at the boy and said, "What is it that has brought you to my valley, human? What is it you gain from being here?" Izuku looks up and he says, "I've lost my way. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on, but I lost my mama. She's gone, and I can't find my way back to my camp." The dragon took this as a sign that the boy, the dragon misunderstood and thought the boy was orphaned because of the way he said it, and he thought to himself that maybe having a human around wouldn't be too bad, especially since he's getting old and he wants to make sure that he leaves a legacy behind, a legacy of dragon slaying. He wanted to make sure that the dragon slaying art of fire was not forgotten to the winds of time. He wanted to make sure that at least something of his legacy was stayed behind. He looked down at the boy and said, "Human, if I was to tell you that I could grant you great power, what would you say?" Izuku looked up at the dragon and said, "I'd say I'd accept. that I would love to have such great power as you. The dragon set his head down and said, "Do you wish to learn the powers of my people? I wield the power of fire, for I am a fire dragon. And if you were to become my student, you would learn the art of the Fire Slayer dragon." Izuku, after pondering for a moment, he looked up and said, "I accept." The dragon smiled real big, and with a hearty laugh, he said, "Excellent, boy. You shall become my son and learn the ways of the Fire Dragon Slayer. But first, you must learn to live as a Fire Dragon Slayer." He basically took Izuku to this cave where Igneel, which he told Izuku's name was Igneel, explained to Izuku how Fire Slayer magic works. He told him that to have the power of a Fire Dragon Slayer, you must call upon the fire within yourself. Turn your passion into burning hot flames, and to expel it from your diaphragm into your throat and out of your mouth with passion. He explained to Izuku that passion is the greatest fire a dragon slayer can wield. And as a show of force, he said, "Look." And as he turned his head up, he took a deep breath in and went whoosh, as a giant burning flame hit the ceiling of the cave, essentially lighting the whole cave up with such a luminous fire. And after Igneel brought his head down, he said, "Look upon the earth that I have breathed fire upon. The earth itself was singed by my flame. And that is only of the flame of passion that burns within my chest. You, boy, must learn to harness the power, to connect with the passion in your chest and breathe it through your body and out through your throat." This wasn't something that Izuku learned in a flash. It took him a long time. He went through vigorous training to learn to harness the flame within himself, the flame of passion, the flame of desire and determination, the flame of will, and finally the flame of wrath. And within a month, Izuku could expel a tiny flame from his mouth. And Igneel was proud. He said, "Yes, boy. You have found your flame. Now make it stronger. Foster this flame within your chest. That way you one day will be able to breathe the fire as great as mine." He took Izuku out of the cave and told him, "Watch and learn as I show you how a dragon fights." He goes over and he finds a great beast in the field. Igneel would always go out and collect meat for Izuku to eat upon, but this time he wanted to show Izuku exactly what having the power of a dragon slayer was like. He said, "Watch very closely, Izuku, for one day you will learn to use each of my powers." And as he breathed in, he yelled, "Fire dragons roar!" And a great flame had expelled itself from his mouth as it engulfed the great beast. Though this beast was not felled with one strike alone. He showed Izuku, he said, "Now the next technique. Fire dragon's wing attack!" And with one swipe of his wing, a great flame burst from his wing and struck the great beast, knocking it to the ground. And he looked over to Izuku and told him, "And this is Fire Dragon's Claw!" And as he brought down his great claws, he dug them deep into the beast, causing it to forfeit its own life, as the flames from his fist burrowed deep into its flesh, cooking it thoroughly from the inside out. And as he carried the beast over to Izuku, he said, "This is what it is to have the power of a dragon slayer. This, my boy, is what being a dragon slayer looks like. Having the fire to burn those who oppose us with pride and dignity. We dragon slayers protect everyone. Dragons do not meddle in human affairs. But if the time arises when a great calamity may come upon the world, we dragons will embark upon a mission to slay any who will get in our path. Though, as it stands, there are very few dragons left in the world." Izuku, in an attempt to kind of understand more about the powers of a dragon slayer, he asked his father, "Well, is there anything else that I should know about fire? Not in general?" And Igneel, he laughs and he says, "Well, there is the simple fact that as a dragon slayer, with dragon slayer magic, you gain power from eating fire." Izuku's eyes just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Izuku shouted out, "I can eat fire?" Igneel laughs heartily. He says, "Of course you can. I'm training you to have the powers of a dragon after all." "And what kind of fire dragon slayer can't even eat fire?" Igneel makes a point by saying, "Here, how about this? You try and muster up as much fire as you can, and give me a hearty fire dragon's roar, and I'll show you that I can eat your measly fire." Izuku gathers as much passion in his throat as he can, channels all that burning heat within his guts to come up, and he goes, "Fire dragons roar!" And a decent flame shoots from his mouth and up into Igneel. And Igneel laughs and says, "Give me more!" as he opens his mouth wide. And weirdly enough, Izuku notices as the flames kind of come from his mouth, that he's pushing harder and it's growing bigger. And when Igneel starts eating the fire almost begins to sound and look as if it's being slurped into his mouth like spaghetti. Now, Igneel, after sucking all the fire out of his son, goes, "Now your turn." And that's when Izuku basically goes, "Oh no, as igneel goes, come on, try and eat as much fire as you can. Fire dragons roar, and and he just shoots a huge flame towards Izuku, and Izuku basically like jumps out of the way, screaming, "Are you crazy?" And Ino goes, "What? You'll never know until you start eating the fire, boy." And then he goes, "Fine. How about this? I'll shoot some tiny fire at you. You can try eating that." And Igneel just starts flicking little fireballs towards Izuku, and Izuku, on his first attempt, he opens his mouth, and when the fire goes in his mouth, he goes, "Hot!" But as time goes on, he gets better at eating the fire, and like he learns that his father was pretty spot on. That the more fire you eat, the more energy you gain out of it, and the more you feel alive, basically. And Izuku stays with Igneel for a very long time, learning as much as he can from his father about all the different techniques that a fire dragon slayer can use. And as Izuku is like going through all this time, like learning from Igneel, he gets closer and closer to the mighty dragon. And as it goes further, Igneel during one of the winters that Izuku is spending with him, he gives Izuku a white scarf, and to help Izuku feel better in the cold. Igneel explains that the scarf was made out of his scales, and Izuku is amazed because, surprisingly enough, the scales of the scarf feel so warm to the touch. And Igneel tells him that those white scales are infused with the fire magic of him from inside of him. And Izuku is amazed to hear this, but as time goes on, Izuku grows bigger and bigger and learns more and more about the powers of a dragon slayer. And Igneel warns Izuku that he needs to be careful not to overdo himself, because if he uses too much fire, he can end up using all of his reserves and wearing himself out. So he needs to make sure that he eats as much fire as often as possible, and during and outside of battle, that way that he makes sure that that the tanks are always in full capacity, but to not overdo it, as trying to use too much fire or eat too much fire will cause a level of strain on his body that his body cannot yet use. And he tells his son that as he grows older, he's going to learn that the powers of the Dragon Slayer do not come easy. That he's going to have to learn to grow with the power, to grow stronger over time. Because the power of a Dragon Slayer is not a cheat sheet to ultimate power. You have to grow with this magic. You have to let it develop inside of you. You have to learn to master it step by step and build the foundations to become a great fire dragon slayer. That there is no cheat sheet to power. He has to put in the dedication and the drive and work to master this ability. and one day he'll reach the level of his father, Igneel, and be able to use a type of dragon slaying magic called Fire Dragon King. Izuku, after hearing this, is amazed to hear that that after he's mastered this ability, the type of fire he'll be able to use is Fire Dragon King Slayer magic. Izuku, no matter how much time he puts into thinking about how strong this could be, the power level of his father is just so vast that it's exponential. And Izuku just kind of thinks to himself that maybe he can, maybe with this kind of power, after fostering it enough, maybe he really can be a pro hero, one that saves people, that keeps the order of things in line. Igneel tells Izuku that he's not sure if the other dragons have found hosts, or if Izuku is the only one. So, unfortunately, he may never meet another person who can use Dragon Slayer magic. But if he does, he needs to be careful, because not all dragons like each other. Not all slayers get along. And if he's not careful, he may find himself in a predicament that he never expected. Izuku, knowing the danger, accepts this and tells his father that he will become as strong as possible. Strong enough to make him proud. And Izuku and Igneel basically go back to training, and time passes on as events unfold. I think I'm going to stop right there. I hope y'all enjoyed, and don't forget, the shadows are watching.